Hi everyone, this is Professor Vamathizen. It's a really long last name, so everybody just calls me Professor V, and that's fine in the email or anything else like that. Since this is an online course, I wanted to do a course overview video to walk you through how this course is set up. So all of my courses are going to be set up using modules. Right here on the left-hand side, you can see I have the modules highlighted, but even if you go to the home page, it's still going to pull up the modules here. So the first module is the important information. Then we have Lab Exam 1 module, Lab Exam 2, so on and so forth. And when you open each one of these modules, you'll see everything that you need for that lab unit. So let's start with the syllabus. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. I'm just going to kind of point out some important stuff. So this is an entirely online course. I do have the days of the class wrong. I will go in and fix this before I get the course published. And I also says 1, but that's actually 2. I apologize for that. I will get that fixed before the course is actually available to you. This is a late start course. So there are no required books or materials. You do not need a Pearson account or access code for this class. You should not be charged for any books or materials for this lab course because I have written all of the labs for you and they're available to you on Canvas for free. And I'll show you those in a little bit. Grading scale is your standard grading scale, 90 to 100, 80 to 89, so on and so forth. I do round up, so if you have an 89.5, 79.8, anything like that, you will automatically be receiving the next letter grade up. I do have students who always ask, well, what happens if I get an 89.1? An 89.1 to an 89.4 is what I consider a gray area. And we'll talk more about this at the end of the semester, but you can reach out to me and maybe there's something I can reopen for you, or maybe you didn't get full points on something where I can get you to the next letter grade. However, if you have an 88.2, that is going to be a B. We cannot move grades beyond 1%. But again, you'll see me send out an email closer towards the end of the semester with that information in it. So our grading categories for lab are just 2 categories. We have lab exams, which represent 70% of your grade, and we have our lab assignments, which are your lab submissions, actual completion and uploading of your labs, and 2 lab reports, which represents 30% of your course grade. There are 5 total lab exams, so you have 1 for each lab unit, and then a cumulative final. Of these 5 exams, your lowest grade will be dropped. So I do not implement the grade drop until after the cumulative final closes because there's always a little bit of confusion if I start implementing it in the beginning, what the true grade will be at the end of the cumulative final. So your grades will still be in there. And like I said, as soon as cumulative final closes, I will go in and implement the drop lowest exam grade. So if you have an A at the end of the 4 lab units, you do not need to take the cumulative final. I wouldn't suggest that you take it at all. You will get a 0 for that cumulative final, but then that grade will be dropped the following day once I implement the lowest exam grade drop. And I'll show you more about that. You need to log in regularly into Canvas. That's how attendance is tracked. Why this is important is because this is a fast track course within 12 weeks. If you're not logging in regularly to Canvas and completing things, you are going to fall behind. Work missed or late work is generally not accepted. If you're in communication with me and it's an unusual circumstance, I can grant you some late acceptances. But the big reason why is because everything is open and available to you now. You could go in and complete this entire course within 2 weeks if you wanted to. So that's pretty much the reason why I don't accept late work. So for example, all the stuff from Lab Exam 1 is available to you, including Labs 1 through 4 and its lab report and the exam. You could take the exam tomorrow if you wanted to. The due dates that are shown right here, these are the dates that the exam will close and be locked. And usually, again, for that reason, I do not allow lab exams to be taken past the due date because you have the rest of the semester to get these done. So you can go in and find a time that works with your schedule to go in and take it. So you do not have to take it on the due dates. You can take it now if you wanted to take it. So go ahead and put these dates in as firm due dates, but recognize that you can go in and take it well ahead of time if that's what your schedule works for you. So all the exams will be proctored using HonorLock. There is an HonorLock acknowledgement that's an assignment for you that goes in and talks about how you could potentially lose points on an exam for HonorLock violations. So for example, if you're consistently looking off the screen, if you're talking, if somebody else is in the room, so on and so forth, those would be considered violations, and you would receive a grade penalty for each of those violations. Because this is an online course and you are taking proctored exams, you need to make sure you have a device that's reliable as well as an internet source that is reliable while taking the exams. And you will need a camera as well for that. You also have the option to take the exam in the TLCC on a scheduled day and time if that's a method that you prefer. But you need to reach out to me well ahead of time if that's what you intend to do, because I have to get those submissions sent in, or those requests sent in pretty far in advance. The other stuff in here is just stuff I'm required to put in here, so you can go in and take a look at that if you want to. The next thing I want to show you is the lab schedule. So again, it's by units. There's a lot of flexibility because I'm assuming most of you are taking an online course because you have a busy schedule, maybe a job, something like that. So the first lab unit is going to be labs 1 through 4. You will need to go in and download these labs. They're in a Word document and a PDF form available to you. So it's your choice if you just want to type in the Word document and upload the submission, or if you have an iPad and you want to go in and download the PDF and write it in, or you can even print it out, each of the labs, and then upload pictures of your submissions. It's totally up to you. So these are the 4 labs you're responsible for. All the labs and the first lab report would be due Saturday, October 4th at 11:59 p.m. And your exam is going to close, exam 1 will close on Sunday, October 5th at 11:59 p.m. So again, all the labs and all the material from each lab unit is due at 11:59 p.m. the night before the lecture exam. So you have plenty of time to go in and get these done. I would not recommend waiting till the last minute. Like I said, everything is open. I would encourage you to work well ahead of time because you can with this course. So exam 4, again, is down here. It closes Sunday, December 7th, and then your cumulative final closes on the last day of class, which is Wednesday, December 10th at 11:59 p.m. So that date is 100% firm because I have to go in and do the lowest exam grade drop and get final grades submitted, I think by that Friday. So okay, so that was pretty much the important stuff that I would normally do on our first lab meeting. And again, I'm just going to walk you through lab exam 1 so you kind of get an idea. So this is the HonorLock acknowledgement I was talking about. Make sure you go in and read it. There's no time limit. It's not a quiz. I just want you to recognize where you could potentially lose points. Bottom line is, if you're not cheating and you're looking at your screen, you have nothing to worry about. So just read through this so you understand the potential violations. You'll type your full name down here and then you'll submit it. So here's how the labs, you click on the lab. So right here, again, this is an introduction. There's a lot of times there'll be introductions to them. So you can go in and get some background information. Here's some information of different things. And the background information for the lab is useful in actually completing the lab. So while you won't need to know all of this specific stuff for the lab exam, I would definitely reference this because I put this together for you. when you're going to complete the lab itself. So there's a little bit of background information on lab 1 there. Not all of the labs have that background information, but I think I put some introduction or something in most of the labs. Here's your lab right here. I said they were in PDF format as well, but it looks like I didn't do a PDF format. But they're available in a Word document, which you can then save as a PDF document in order to go in and complete it on your iPad or whatever. So here's what the lab looks like. So this is your blood composition lab. Because this is an online course, normally you would take out a microscope, put in a blood smear, and go in and identify these things. Because we're not able to do that, because we're not actually in the lab room, you'll see that I've embedded a lot of different links. So for example, this one's from a digital histology atlas, but specifically linking you to what a blood smear would look like so that you can go in and take a look at, the plasma, erythrocytes, which are your red blood cells, your 5 types of neutrophils, which are listed here. Also, these have links. So if you hover over it and it's underlined and in blue, this could take you to a image itself of that particular cell, or you could just go in and use the general blood smear slide up here. So you have all these resources. Do you have to use the ones that I embedded? Absolutely not. If you prefer or you have a good website to go in and look at other images, they all should be pretty similar because we're all looking at the same thing. So if you look at a blood smear, we're going to find our 5 different types of leukocytes, we're going to see erythrocytes, and we're going to see the background and recognize that that's plasma. So you can use whatever resources that you feel comfortable with when completing these. A lot of times, like, you can go in and try to sketch it. Another option you have, especially if you're working with the Word document, is to copy the image of the neutrophil and go in and paste it here. So you know what it looks like. You can write some general characteristics. So for example, this is whatever you think will help you. This is not a textbook definition. So for me, to recognize neutrophils, I know that the nuclei have 3 or more lobes. So I would type 3 or more lobes. If we were talking about an organ, let's say the pancreas, the characteristics that I would write down, again, we're not looking for textbook definition. We're looking for descriptions, your descriptions that will help you identify whatever's in this left-hand column on a lab exam. So back to the pancreas example, to me, the pancreas looks like a cow tongue. So I would write the description, organ that looks like a cow tongue. So your description and your characteristic of whatever is over here is going to be different from somebody else's. If you go in and put a textbook definition in or Google it and put in that definition, that's probably very wordy and not as helpful as you coming up with your own characteristics and definition. Again, it's asking you for the relative percentages right here of the different formed elements in the plasma within blood. You can find these again using the internet, or you can go back and reference that background information or that introduction to blood that I had posted in this first lab page here. So that's kind of an idea of what you need to do. Also, this one's like kind of a labeling one. So these are cell models of them. So you could go in and just draw a line. You could go in and actually write the name. How you complete the labs is totally up for you, because your goal is to complete this so that you know this information for a lab exam. I'm just looking for completion there. So once you finish this, you will go back to the assignment, if I can get this here, and then you can just upload your assignment. I'm on the instructor view, so I can't see that part, but you should be able to submit either the Word document, you can take pictures of it and upload the pictures, or submit a PDF document of your lab, and then you've submitted it and you're good to go. So you also have a lab report. All the instructions for the 2 lab reports that you're responsible for are built within the page. So if you click on it, it'll tell you everything. Like for this one, this is blood typing. So you need to watch the blood typing, things that are involved, and then go in and you again, the instructions are here. Shade in the wells where clumping occurs, also called agglutination, and then determine the blood type. And then you're going to write a lab report on it. So in order to get the full points on your lab report, make sure you read this little blurb of kind of how I was expecting you to do this. So title, that's page 1. Then starting on page 2, you'd write your purpose. You don't have to start a new page to go in and do your method. I gave you examples of how you could start this or things that I would kind of expect. Results always include some sort of tables or charts. It does not have to be the same chart. You could use this chart, or you can go in and generate your own chart in Word or Excel or however you want to do it. I would also maybe make a table with this information, things like that. So that would need to go in the results section and in a conclusion. Word limits or word length when we're talking about the lab reports. I'm not going to give you a word length. That's why it's not specified here. Some people can say what needs to be said in a short amount of words, while it takes other students a lot more words to get the same information across. The point is that you're including all the information that is being asked of you down here in the lab report, not necessarily how many words you have. Because if I put a word count that's required for the lab report, some of you will just try to fill in random words or sentences, or it'll be redundant because you're just trying to meet the word limit. So word limit to me isn't important. It's more about the content of what's in your lab report than how long your lab report is. So the next one, this is hard anatomy. So here I put, like, make sure you open it up and look at it. This is a link to help you recognize the different components or structures on the heart models. And then this would be your lab here. And again, you'll complete it. The points do vary depending on what lab we're talking about, because as we saw the blood lab, there wasn't a whole lot to do there. But the heart one's worth 30 points instead of the 20 for the blood, because there's a lot more for you to go in and work on. So again, you can insert or draw a picture here. I'm letting you know you can't see these, although you should recognize the difference between the parietal and visceral pericardium and the fibrous pericardium. Both of these you should have learned about in A&P1 when we were talking about the serous membrane. So visceral always means lying on the surface of the organ. Because we see pericardium, we know the organ that we're talking about is the heart. Parietal is the membrane that's lining the cavity that's housing the organ, so the pericardial cavity. So this is the membrane lining that. Different things like that. So I also want to point out, when we're talking about anatomy and physiology, anatomy is what we're really doing in lab. So a lot of the lab exam is just going to be images with leader lines or arrows pointing to something, saying name this, name this, name this. So when you're going to put in all these different descriptions or characteristics, it's what you think it looks like. So the auricles, they look like ear flaps or ear-like structures on the top of the atria. So that's what I would put there. Again, it's to help you identify them when there is an arrow pointing to these structures on a lab exam. So don't copy and paste something from Google, because most of the time that's not very helpful. You do not need to know the function of any of these structures on a lab exam. Function is for lecture. So this is just visual identification. Another thing I wanted to go ahead and mention while I was just thinking about it, the information on the lab reports, again, there's only 2, can also be included on the lab exams. So the lab report was on blood typing. I'm not saying you need to know the specific blood type for Mr. Smith or Mr. Green. No, that's not going to be on the lab exam. What is going to be on the lab exam are what agglutinogens and what agglutinins can be found in a person with blood type A. So make sure you understand. Or which blood type is the universal donor, universal receiver, different things like that. So you could see some of this information on the lab exam as well. I always have a discussion board at the bottom of each lab unit. this is just if you have any questions or if you found really good resources for one of the labs, you can go in and post it here. You can respond to another student's question like that. I will go in and try to check the discussion boards fairly frequently to see if anybody has any questions. But if you ask me something specific, like are the oracles going to be on the lab exam, I'm not going to answer that. But if you have a question about how to fill out something, anything like that, instead of messaging me, I encourage you to post it to the discussion board because other students might have the same question. So if I can reply there, then everybody can see the answer or see the resource that I'm giving out or something like that. So I encourage you to post a lot of stuff to each of the discussion boards for each campus. So lab exam 1 is here. I think it's the point values are variable. You have 75 minutes per lab exam, which is usually plenty of time. You do not need the access code, even though I'm showing it here. How you access all the lab exams is by clicking on the honor log tab over here. You will see all of the exams pop up, and this is how you need to click on them. So even though I have the lab exams in the modules, that's just there to know that you need to take it and so that you can see the due date. You cannot actually click on the lab exam here to take it through honor lock. You need to click on the exams using the honor lock tab over here, and that's how you access it. Okay, and then so on and so forth. Once you finish lab unit 1, you can move on to lab unit 2, which is set up the exact same way. We have a little bit more labs, they're all in here. Look for your introduction or background or any additional resources when you click on these, then upload them, and then the exam. So, I mean, like I said, if you wanted to go ahead and get this course out of the way, you can. You can take all of these lab exams next week if you felt like it. These are just the due dates by which you absolutely have to take them by and absolutely have to submit these by in order to avoid any grade penalty. For the cumulative final, for those who need to take it, again, if you have an A at the end of lab unit 4, do not take the cumulative final. You'll just get a 0 and it will be dropped. But if you do need to take the cumulative final, I do have a guide for that one. Everything else is fair game when we're talking about the other lab exams. Anything in your lab could be potentially asked. So this is a cumulative final guide. It's giving you a good idea of things to study. So for example, you do need to know blood typing for the cumulative final, but you will see that the heart is not on here. So this is a good idea of what labs you need to go back and take a look at and which ones you don't really need to look at, because again, it's not a longer exam. It's the same, 75-minute exam. So I can't put everything on there. So you don't have to worry about the heart structures for this, things like that. You do need to know the stomach, so on and so forth. So if you do opt to take the cumulative final, make sure you take a look at that guide so you know where to focus your studying. Okay, well, I hope this video was helpful and kind of walking you through the course setup. And if you have any questions, again, if it's exam specific, post it to the discussion board. If not, send me an email. I usually respond within 24 hours, if not sooner.